Everyone, I'm Ahana.
And I'm Celine.
And welcome back to another episode here at the
We Are Podcast.
So, we didn't do news updates last week, so we're back again with some news updates for your Thanksgiving week. By the way, Thanksgiving will be a couple days after we post this, so happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Hope you eat lots of pumpkin pie.
And have some good time with your family.
Yes, and remember what you're thankful for.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
So, we have honestly some of the most exciting news updates that we've had in a very long time.
I gotta say, I'm so glad we did news updates this week because we have a lot of good ones. But I just want to add, some of these are really, really heavy topics that include stuff like harassment or like abuse. So we just want to add sort of like a trigger warning. Like, if you know that this might trigger you, just be conscious of that. And definitely we don't want to trigger anyone.
And we definitely think that it's kind of time to just children should be aware of these things that are happening in the world, even if they are a little heavy, because a lot of people would just shield their children from these topics. But it's important to know because it's real. But
at the same time, if you've had experiences with this before and you know it's gonna trigger you, definitely just do what you know is best for yourself.
But if you just want to learn more about it and you're not gonna be disturbed by it, we encourage you to
and you might be disturbed because obviously I was disturbed, but not to
the point where you're mentally,
disturbed in the way where you're how could a human do this? But you know what I'm saying.
It's important just to be aware of what's happening in your world.
Yeah. So let's get into the first update.
Yes, this is the one that's been circling.
This is a huge one.
Huge.
Okay, so let's talk about it.
So, this is a case of Kyle Rittenhouse.
Okay.
And this was a huge, big deal that everyone, oh my god.
I keep drinking water, sorry.
I'm putting this away because you drink like a horse.
Okay. I agree.
Anyway, so basically, Kyle Rittenhouse was a 17-year-old male who was also Caucasian, meaning white. He was kind of when they were looking into his social media account, they saw that he made multiple posts kind of going for Blue Lives Matter and humanize the badge.
Yeah, so Blue Lives Matter is the movement for supporting the cops, and it's kind of the opposite of Black Lives Matter, sort of.
It's supporting the cops versus the victims of the Black Lives Matter movement. So there was a lot of just evidence on there that he had very radical views, and he was very pro-guns. He also had a very strong affinity for them. He had videos showing him having backyard target practice with his guns.
Wow.
He was just a very, very rightist person. You can tell from his posts. He also was known to hang around with a couple of white supremacists.
Oh.
There was even rumors going around that white supremacists bailed him out of jail, which is true, I guess. And so that's just kind of his background. But back in 2020, there was a couple of protests for this dude, and they were kind of just arguing against the Blake case, and that was just another case where they shot him, and of course he died. And it was in support of the Black Lives Matter movement when all of that was really on the media. And so what happened was he was called, apparently that's what he said, that he went to Kenosha, Wisconsin, to protect a car dealership because people at the car dealership wanted him there to sort of protect against protesters that were going to raid the car dealership. And so he kind of thought of it as his duty, and he just wanted to protect it. And the car dealership's name was Car Source, and this happened in August of 2020. So he was just there to protect it, and he brought an AR-15 assault-style rifle, which, number one, he's 17, so it was, illegal for him to carry.
And number two, that's, a really dangerous
it was
weapon.
Illegally purchased.
That's very,
So that's, just keep that in mind. It was illegally purchased, and he wasn't, because in Wisconsin, I believe some, under minors are allowed to hold guns, but not that type, and they're not allowed to purchase them, so it was illegal in many different ways. So, on this evening, he was protecting the car dealership, and people were interviewing there, and there was actually a reporter from the Daily Caller that said that interviewed him, and he said, quote, "Our job is to protect the business, and part of my job is also to help the people. If there's someone hurt, I'm running into harm's way. That's why I have my rifle, because I need to protect myself, but I also have my med kit. So he like was there, he had a medical kit, and he was gonna protect anyone who got hurt. That's what he said. Then what happened basically in the first shooting, so he was like being like pursued by someone, apparently. Like he said someone was chasing him, and there was actually a video showing that like someone was chasing him, and then like an unknown person's like rifle or gun shot into the air. So like he ran into a parking lot, and then someone like fired a handgun, and then he turned around in the direction of the handgun fire. And the people chasing him, which included one of his victims, Mr. Rosenbaum, he lunged at him. And in retaliation, Mr. Rittenhouse fired 4 times, shooting Mr. Rosenbaum in the head, which the video shows. So that was the first incident.
Okay.
Yeah, he shot him in the head. And then the second incident, he makes a phone call according to the video and then flees the scene. So he's running, and then he trips to the ground while he's, like, running away from the scene. And then he fires 4 shots as people come after him while he's laying on the ground. One appears to be hit in the chest and falls to the ground. Another one is hit in the arm and runs away, and that is the man that survived. And so he mixed in at least, like, 16 other gunshots at the ring of the time. So, like, no one really knows what it was because a lot of people are shooting.
Oh,
so
right. It was really chaotic.
A lot. Yeah, it was a lot. So the victims included 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum, 26-year-old Anthony Huber, and Gage Grosskreutz, 26, who actually survived the shot. He's the one who got shot in the arm.
Wow.
So that was intense. And
yes,
this is the real kicker. So the real thing that people are, like, really talking about is how after he shot all these people, he walked by the police car without saying anything about the people that he shot.
Okay, so if it was out of self-defense, I feel like he would have said something.
Yeah, because he would have been like, oh my god, I just shot these people out of self-defense. Because by walking away, he just makes himself look guilty.
Yeah.
And then the next day, he just, like, went home and slept, and then he was arrested and charged with 5 counts, including first-degree intentional homicide. But during the trial, he really defended himself, saying that it was self-defense, that he was there with a medicine kit. How could he be trying to harm people if he was trying to help them? Like, all that stuff. And the judge acquitted him of all charges, meaning that he didn't get charged with anything. He will not do a single charge.
So even though he had, like, illegally purchased a gun and stuff.
And shot 3 people.
Okay, and I think one of the things that goes along with that is, like, white privilege, because I feel like if it were a person of color, it might not have had the same outcome, as we've seen from, like, a lot of previous cases.
Yeah, there's been,
I think that's why there's been a lot of...
posted, like, a 12-year-old boy.
Like, what was his name? Tamir?
I forget, but...
I'm looking it up.
But, yeah, basically what happened was people are really mad about this because there's been a lot of similar cases. The black people have been sentenced to death.
Like, Tamir Rice was, like, I think he was 12 years old when he was shot by police. See, I did research on this a while ago, but
Yeah, but basically, it's just people are saying that, like, if it was a black person, which we've seen before, they would have been charged with a lot more. And so people are really mad. They said that the judge might have been biased because he used some language saying that the people he shot weren't victims. They were, like, traitors or whatever.
And I think at the very least he should have some charges because he purchased it illegally, so he did break the law, regardless of whether or not it was self-defense. And he shouldn't have had that in the first place.
And, like, she should have been charged for at least, like, 3rd degree. By the way, 1st degree is, like, extreme murder, which means that it was planned out. 2nd degree means it was, like, semi-planned out. And then 3rd degree is accidental, pretty much.
Like, say if you hit someone with a car on accident.
Yeah, that would be 3rd degree. He should have been charged with at least 3rd degree.
Yeah,
or 2nd degree, even. And even 1st degree, to be honest.
Yeah, but I think, at the very least, I would say, like, 2nd degree, but I don't know.
Yeah, anyway, that was really long, so.
That's okay. But, wow, yeah, it's definitely causing a lot of uproar, so pay attention to, like, the media and, like, what people are saying about it, because it's kind of important, because it, like, yeah. Anyways.
Everyone has something to say.
All right, for sure. Okay, next one. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, so the next one is about the Turpin Sisters, and, or not the Turpin Sisters, the Turpin children, because it's not all girls. But, 2 of the Turpin children, Jennifer and Jordan, recently spoke about their experiences with, like, severe abuse. in their household. So, like, let's, like, dive into their story and talk about, like, what happened. So, the Turpin parents, Louise Turpin and David Turpin, they had 13 children, and they, like, abused their kids terribly. Like, it was really bad. They would, like, chain them to their beds. They would starve them. They had a torture room. Let's go into, like, details. Okay. So they shackled their children with padlocks and chains after one of them escaped. They would be chained up for months and were forbidden from showering more than once a year. They could only shower once a year.
That's disgusting.
Sometimes they couldn't even use the toilet. They had to go to the bathroom in their own bed and just lay there in chains.
Yeah, that's awful.
They were used to frequent beatings. One of the girls said her mom tried to choke her and they, like, almost killed them. At times, there was, like, human waste on the floor. They would be beaten if they washed their hands above the wrist because it amounted to them playing in the water. They were not allowed to play with toys, but there were, like, packets of unopened toys, like, everywhere around the house because the parents were, like, taunting them. And the kids would be starved. They were starved and malnourished so badly they had, like, growth issues. One of them was 29 years old and she only weighed, like, 83 pounds.
What the heck?
Yeah, this is terrible. Like, I can't even begin to explain.
They would kudos to you for researching that, because that's insane.
It was a little bit, like, hard for me to, like, research, because I was like, this is, like, who would do this to their children? Yeah. They even would leave out, like, slices of, like, pie and, like, food on the counter, but they would be like, the kids can't eat it, so they would, like, eat well themselves. Like, they would eat takeout in front of their kids and then just starve their kids.
Do you like know when this started?
This, I think it was, like, their entire childhood. Like, one of the kids aged from ages 2 to 29 years old. The only one they didn't, like, abuse was the 2-year-old.
But like was this in the 2000s or like?
So let's talk about the escape. I'll keep talking about, like, this, but then let's talk about, like, the escape of, like, how they escaped and how their story kind of came out.
Okay.
So yeah, they had to, like, stay awake all night and sleep all day, and it was, like, the weirdest thing. They didn't receive dental care, like, doctor care. They didn't receive proper education because some of them didn't even know, like, what a police officer was or what medication was. They were extremely isolated, barely got to go outside. They call it the House of Horrors because it is, like, one of the known worst cases of abuse, like, ever. So what happened is the oldest sibling, she decided she was going to try to escape and call the police. So she escaped out the window and she called the police and she said, some of my siblings are, like, chained to the bed and we're being abused and, like, I need help. So the police came, they found the house. The house was, like, filthy and disgusting. It smelled of, like, dead animals and waste, like, human waste. There were children, like, chained to a bed. So all the children, they brought them to the hospital, and then the parents, were charged, and they're facing, I think, 25 years to life in prison.
They should get life.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about, okay, so the mom, whose name is Louise Turpin, she grew up in a very bad living situation, and her sister actually spoke out about it. She's like, I can't believe my sister would, like, do this to her own children, but if anything caused it, I think it was, like, her childhood that, like, kind of messed her up from the beginning. So when Louise Turpin was a child, her grandfather would, like, sexually abuse her, and her mom would, like, bring them, like, drive them to their grandpa's house and then get paid for basically, like, selling her kids to their grandpa for, like that. Which is, like...
What in the hell?
This is the most, like, probably one of the most messed up things I've ever, like, heard about, like, ever. Just because, also, I forgot to add, the kids, sometimes they would, like, put them in, like, cages, like, dog kennels, and, like, lock them in cages. It was disgusting. Yeah, so, 2 of the siblings decided to speak out about, like, the abuse in their story, and, like, kind of what they had to go through, because they went through a lot, and they were extremely, like, detached from the world. A lot of them have, like, heart issues and, like, a lot of issues, like, growth issues. Some of them did not like, grow correctly, like, developmentally, physically, or mentally because of, like, being abused and, like, malnourished. Yeah, it was really, really bad. The oldest sibling said the only way she knew like, the only word she knew to describe it was hell. Like, that's the only word she could use to describe it.
Why would you even have children if you're
I don't understand why you would have 13 children. Like, that's... And one of the kids says he still has, like, nightmares from, like, watching his siblings go through that and, like, going through that himself. But then one of the girls said, like, the first time, like, when we were free and, like, escaped, like, I realized, like, we, like, went to a park and I got to smell, like, the fresh air and it was, like, amazing because she had never, like, been outside, you know, like that. And it was just, like... And the saddest thing about this is that one of the sisters said that apparently they used the Bible to explain their behavior. So they said they love to point out things in Deuteronomy. I don't know Deuteronomy, saying that, quote, we have the right to do this to you. They even said they had the right to kill their kids if they didn't listen.
I'm surprised they didn't, honestly.
Yeah, they came really close to killing their kids. Some of the kids said they thought they were going to die. So a lot of people have raised money for the kids. Like $50,000 were raised for their care.
500?
No, 50,000.
That says 500.
No, 50,000.
That's 500.
50,000.
500.
No, or 500,000. I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying. Okay, I thought you were saying 500. Okay, yeah, I'm wrong. Ignore me. I thought you were saying.
Okay, there is 500,000.
Okay, 500,000. Yeah, I'm delusional. But yeah, the parents pleaded guilty to charges of child endangerment, torture, false imprisonment, and more. But the saddest part is 5 of the younger kids, after they were freed from, like, this awful household, they were sent to foster homes where there were accusations of child abuse, even in those foster homes, and charges were filed, against, like...
That's the thing with the foster system. There's a lot of, like,
yeah, it's houses. Like, I just wish, like, I want them to have a good life, because obviously they have such, like, unimaginable trauma that's, like... I can't even begin to, like, imagine that, because, like, I don't know, I just can't.
That's awful.
It's terrible.
Anyway. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the next thing was, like, super big in pop culture, and it's honestly really interesting. Okay. And really sad. But, Astroworld. So, this is one of the biggest scandals in pop culture yet.
Okay.
Travis Scott, which is a famous rapper, many of you all probably know him. So he held an Astroworld Music Festival in Houston, Texas at NRG Park on Friday, November 5th. So this event was said to have attendance over 50,000 people, not 500,000.
Okay, I see how it is.
Anyway, it's said to have like 50,000 people. So basically it was like an open, like, grass area, and there wasn't, like, a lot of barriers or boundaries or seating, which is, like, kind of like it just turned in. It's kind of supposed to be like a rave, essentially, where there would just be like groups of people.
Okay.
So basically what happened was, like, randomly at around 9:30, everyone started to push and shove towards the front of the stage, and everyone started being hoarded at the front. So the people started to, like, be compressed, which caused like restrictive breathing. Someone even said that, like, someone who attended the concert, Alexis Galvin, said once he started, all hell broke loose. All of what happened is to be 50,000 people ran up to the front, compressing everyone with little air available. Luckily, I have mosh pit experience and I'm 6 feet tall, so I could breathe, but others weren't so fortunate. Yeah. So that's really scary. But
it was. And I heard about this. Like, I'm just not realizing you're talking about like, something I've heard about.
Yeah, exactly. And so, as a result of this, people were, like, barricades were broken, people were trampled, videos were made of, like, people storming it, and, like, people literally being trampled.
Like it was intense.
It was bad. Like, it was really bad. There was even, like, a video of a woman who went up to, like, the cameraman, and she was trying to tell them that someone was, like, dead and they needed to stop the concert, but they wouldn't listen. Like, the staff wouldn't listen.
Mean, to think that could happen at a concert. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and, like, they didn't listen, which is super awful, number one.
Yeah.
So, as a result of all this, 25 people were hospitalized. 8 were confirmed dead on November 5th. 9th victim died on November 10th. And the 10th victim, which was a 9-year-old who had a coma induced by this, died on November 14th.
I just, like, to think that they were just, like, innocently going to a concert and they, like, I feel like this stuff shouldn't happen. Like,
yeah.
We need to be more careful, I feel like.
Especially the security should have listened to the people saying that people are dying.
Like, this makes
if someone tells you someone are dying, even if you don't believe them, you have to go check. Like, that's just human.
It's kind of on you to go check. Like if they're trying to get help from you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, besides the 9-year-old, there was also a 16-year-old Brianna Rodriguez and 14-year-old John Hilgert. So many of these things about, like, were unclear, but there's also, like, a rumor that someone was walking around and stabbing and injecting people with narcotic drugs.
Oh,
so
what?
They actually authorities said, like, are rumored to have a report that an officer was, like, reaching over to restrain or grab a citizen and felt a prick on her neck. And when the officer was examined, he was unconscious, and medics administered Narcan, which is, like, given to people who are, like, suspected of going on opioid overdose, which is like a deadly drug that's a painkiller, but if you overdose on it, you could die. So
this is dark.
Yeah. And this isn't even everything that went down. This is just like the bare minimum. And because of this, Travis Scott and his team are facing 177 lawsuits.
Oh.
Which is really, really bad.
Yeah, I mean,
it's his fault though, so.
This stuff should not freaking happen at a concert. Like, I don't know, like...
It didn't happen anyway.
Yeah, anywhere. But, like, there's so many dark news updates this week.
And, actually, like, to, like, kind of respond to that, Travis Scott was gonna, like, compensate families for all funeral costs, but I think there's also, like, a thing in it that he makes them sign, like, if he is gonna pay for, like, all these, like, compensation things, then you can't file a lawsuit against him. So,
that's sneaky. I don't
like it. But.
I don't like that. And also, like, just paying for funeral costs isn't going to fix the fact that, like...
Yeah, I would definitely do a lawsuit over funeral costs.
Oh, like, yeah, for sure. Because it's, like, I would want to get, like, some level of, like, justice back,
yeah.
You know?
Anyway, that was...
Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, next one is another kind of terrible one. Okay, so a Pennsylvania teen is shot, and a video that was just released shows he had his hands up, like, when he was shot. So let's talk about this. So a Pennsylvania teen, whose name was Christian Hall, he's a Chinese American, by the way. He was in the middle of a mental health crisis, and he had experienced depression, and he was standing over a ledge of a highway near Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. It didn't, like, explicitly say this in the article I'm reading, but I'm pretty sure he was trying to commit suicide because he was standing over the ledge. Troopers with the Pennsylvania State Police tried to talk to him. Like, they were trying to get him down from the ledge. Like, hey, we can talk to you. We can work this out. You don't have to do this. But then they backed away when they saw what they thought to be a firearm, but it was actually, like, a realistic pellet gun. So pellet guns, I don't know if they're deadly, but they're definitely less deadly than, like, actual guns.
I don't think they're deadly.
I don't think they're, like, dangerous I don't think they're super dangerous or anything.
Yeah.
But videos showed that Christian Hall had his hands in the air for 15 seconds when he was shot. So basically, like... the police officers were like, oh yeah, like, get down, like, it's okay, we can talk this through. And then they saw he had a gun and they backed away. And they're like, put the gun down. And he didn't, but he put his hands up, like, you know, like this, when you're like...
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, when the police tell you, put your hands up. It's kind of like a sign of, like, surrender. And he had his hands up in the air for 15 seconds and they shot them when his hands were in the air. And the reason people are so mad about this is because, like... they felt that him putting his hands in the air, even though he didn't put the gun down, was still a show of, like, surrender. Like, I won't hurt you. But they still shot him even though his hands were up.
That's crazy.
He crumpled to the ground immediately. Yeah. So the shooting actually took place on December 30th of 2020, but just now that footage, like, it was blurred out, the end of, like, when his hands were up and they shot him, but, like, now they were able to, like, get that footage. So state police troopers from outside the local barracks investigated the killing and turned the findings over to the Monroe County District Attorney, who said it was justified because he said the lives of the troopers on scene were in danger. But there are a lot of protests now from activists who, like, questioned why they had opened fire on the teenager, who, you know, appeared to be suicidal and needed help and had his hands in the air. And Hall's parents are actually suing the troopers who shot their son. Christian's father said, quote, "I would would like to see an unbiased investigation take place. I personally would like to see these police officers brought up on charges. Okay. So, yeah.
That's sad. Anyway.
Yeah.
Last update, it's going to be a little short and sweet because we've kind of gone over time. But the first 2 news updates were really long.
Yeah.
But they were really good.
They were good. They were important.
What can I say? We're just that good.
Right.
Anyway, this last update is super important for the Democratic Party, and it was that the Build Back Better Act has been passed. So this is the Biden's Build Back Better plan, which is a $2 trillion package that makes historic investments in family leave, universal pre-care, lower drug costs, climate action, and healthcare. And that was the part of the infrastructure deal we were talking about a lot. Mm-hmm. So this is a huge plan. And they were really struggling to get it passed, but the House of Representatives earlier this week passed it, and the vote was 220 to 213, with 1 Democrat going against them and every single Republican in opposition. Which is kind of sad because I felt like you should have gotten at least a couple Republicans. But, I mean, they did what they wanted to do. So this was really important to fill a bunch of Biden's promises during his campaign, especially to do healthcare, federal safety net for families and low-income workers, as well as climate change. And he really banked on the fact that he's not raising taxes for anyone below who is making below $400,000 a year, which is something that he was really kind of trying to implement. So, along with this, I'd like to share 2 little newsies that I really love. Okay, so we talked about Elijah McClain much.
Yes.
If you want to learn more about his story, listen to our Black Lives Matter episode. We talked
a lot about him and his story, which was...
His story is super sad and it's just
sad.
Awful,
he was such a good person.
Anyway, Aurora, Colorado is paying Elijah McClain's family $15 million to settle the lawsuit over his death. Which is good for the family. Of course, it can never replace him.
Never.
But it's better.
But I think it's a step towards saying, hey, that was wrong, and we know it was wrong. You know.
It's definitely, it's kind of a small form of justice.
Yeah, not necessarily justice, but I think just a way of
not justice.
Kind of being we can make sure this doesn't happen again. We can make sure
just to show his family that what happened was wrong and that they care.
Yeah, I think just knowing that
just a small victory.
It was wrong.
I mean, of course, it can never take
nothing can take back what happened. But yeah.
And the next one is that the CDC officially recommended Pfizer and Moderna vaccines for all adults on Friday. Which is great. This followed the FDA's recommendation.
Yeah, actually, my dad has gotten the booster.
My dad has too.
Yeah.
And yeah. So
all right.
Get your boosters, y'all.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, if you're 2 years old, then
yeah, no,
maybe not. But thank you so much for listening. Keep tuned for the second half. We have a lot of important topics like COVID stuff and rape cases. So please keep tuned. Thank you. Bye.
Welcome back from the break.
Hello. That was long. Okay. Anyways, we're gonna try to make this slightly quicker than the first half because that was a little bit long. But
it was great.
It was great. Let's hope it was great at least.
To me, it was.
I thought it was, but you may differ. Your opinions may differ. Okay, first update is about. Ooh, I'm looking at the wrong one.
It is about Austria.
It is about Austria. Okay, if you don't know, Austria is a country in Europe, but you probably know that.
Sounds like mini Australia to me.
Yeah, no, I was typing it out and I accidentally typed in Australia instead of Austria.
It just reminds me of a tiny version of Australia.
It's nothing like Australia.
Yeah, I know.
It's beautiful. Anyways, so Austria mandates vaccines and goes into lockdown, which causes a lot of protests. I mean, what do we expect?
Yeah.
So tens of thousands of protesters began protesting on Saturday after the Austrian government announced a nationwide lockdown beginning Monday to fight COVID. This is the first lockdown in Europe this year in the fall of Europe so far. And Austria is the first country in Europe to mandate COVID vaccines, and the mandation of these vaccines will take place on February 1st. And I think this is a huge, big, step and deal. Because it's kind of so far we've been mandating businesses and workers, but now this is pretty much everyone who's eligible.
I'm kind of against it. I feel like it's a little bit of a violation.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I totally think you should get vaccinated, but I feel like
this is too much. Because at least with the businesses, you have a choice to quit your job, but in this, it's I
just feel like if the roles were reversed and it was someone else and I didn't support it, then I would be mad about it, Yeah. So I feel I'm kind of mixed feelings about it. But so there were a lot of protests, obviously. And actually protests took place in places in areas like Croatia, Switzerland, Ireland, and the Netherlands. And Austria Health Minister Wolfgang Muckstein said Friday that schools and kindergartens would remain open during the national lockdown. So the national lockdown could take place for 10 days, but it could also go up to 20 days. They're not sure. It just depends. Because Austria has seen the deaths per day have tripled and intensive care units are reaching their capacity. So they're cracking down on it. So the lockdown basically means you can only leave your house for specific reasons and necessities like grocery store shopping, exercising. Basically, you can't have a party with 500 people, stuff like that.
I feel like the lockdown sounds a lot worse than it is.
Yeah, we all experienced it. I think we have. And it wasn't as it's not super severe because you can still go outside on a walk. It's not you can never leave your house, and it's only for 10 to 20 days, not an entire year. So So the government will make vaccinations mandatory starting February 1st. So currently, not quite 66% of people living in Austria, which consists of 8.9 million people. I just put 8.9 people. I think I meant million or million, I don't know.
A million.
But are vaccinated. This is one of the lowest rates in Western Europe. So So the march on Saturday, the protest for this started off at Vienna's Heldenplatz Square. Protesters moved around shouting resistance, blowing whistles. They made signs saying my body, my choice, and we're standing up for our kids. Some posters even said stuff like control the borders, not your people. And a lot of the people involved in the protest were extreme far right people and people involved in political movements that were very far right. 35,000 protesters actually participated in protests around the city, which is a pretty big chunk of people, I would say. Some protesters were detained because they threw bottles and beer cans and fired fireworks at the police. The police had to use pepper spray to disperse the crowd. So Freedom Party leader Herbert Kickl. So I don't know if I pronounced that right. Let's hope I did. But the Freedom Party is a very far right movement. So he's the leader of it, and he tested positive for COVID-19, and he appeared via video denouncing what he called, quote, totalitarian measures from a government, quote, that believes it should think and decide for us. So in Italy, 3,000 people protested the use of green passes. So green passes are documents that prove that a person is vaccinated. So if you want to get into a restaurant or a theater or a gym, you need to have a green pass, basically. In Northern Ireland, people protested the requirement of vaccine passports, and some even compared the COVID restrictions to restrictions imposed during Nazi Germany, which is way too far to compare those things because they're very different.
Yeah, they're very different.
Yeah, and in the Netherlands, it got really violent. At least several people were hurt in Rotterdam during a COVID-19 protest. Mayor Ahmed Aboutaleb told reporters in the early hours of Saturday morning that, quote, on a number of occasions, the police felt it necessary to draw their weapons to defend themselves. So currently in the Netherlands, 70% of people are vaccinated, but the country has seen a big spike in COVID cases. So protesters got really heated. They threw bikes, motorized scooters, and other stuff. 7 people were arrested because they set fire to the streets. So
yeah. Anyway.
Oh, things are getting heated.
Yes, okay, so that was intense.
Yes.
Next one is also intense, by the way.
They're all intense.
So this is something that I feel like is really important to talk about. And so this is a case of Peng Shuai. I hope I say that right. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Basically, Peng Shuai was a 35-year-old Chinese tennis player and former world doubles #1. So, like, in the doubles tennis, she was, like, a #1, which is insane. So, she's won several titles. She's earned 25 titles in her career, and she's really good, basically. She's a great tennis player.
Sounds good, yeah.
Yeah. So, earlier this month, Peng Shuai, I don't know. I'm going to call her Peng Shuai. Okay. I should have researched this. I don't know why I didn't figure it out. Quickly?
How do you
I spent so much time on this news update, and I didn't even... Is it like that? No, it's I think it's Shuai.
Okay. I'll just do pronounce for just continue.
Yeah, anyway. So, basically what happened was she accused Zhang Gaoli, a former high-ranking Chinese government official, of sexual assault. So, in Chinese, a lot of... not in Chinese. In China. A lot of, like, social media platforms are restricted, so they have different platforms than we do. So, she wrote on, like, a social media post on Weibo, which is one of their forms of social media, that Zhang forced her into doing things with him despite repeated refusals. And she wrote that she had a relationship with Zhang that was intermittent for 10 years while he was married. So,
oh gosh.
She said that he invited her to play tennis with him at his house with his wife and abused her while his wife stood guard at the door.
Okay, that's messed up in so many different ways.
Yeah. If this is, like, true, which, of course, we want to believe the women have a right to speak out about their things. Yeah. Then, okay, the poor wife must have been super brainwashed by him. Yeah. To, like, stand guard while he's abusing someone.
Wait, did she know about the abuse?
Yeah, she was standing guard.
Oh my
at the door
God.
While he was abusing her.
Wait. Okay, yeah, she was either brainwashed or she was, like, a part of it, and she was messed up, too. Like, I don't know, either one. But
or brainwashed so she became a part of it.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
So, basically, she said that she doesn't have much proof because Zhang was, like, ultra cautious. Because if you, in the Communist Party in China, because China is a communist party, we'll do an episode about communism later, but yeah, it's a communist party, and that's a specific, very strict form of government. Yeah. And infidelity is such a very, very big issue in the Communist Party, and he would definitely be expelled if he was caught. So, yeah, she said she didn't have proof, but the post was removed within 20 minutes of her, and she also had a verified account, but Chinese government is doing as much as it can to kind of, like, cover this case. Yeah. And they're, like, deleting all, like, the reposts, and they're really trying to cover it in every way possible. But people are still going crazy about it. Oh, so, Chairman and CEO of the Women's Tennis Association, Steve Simon, says that she is safe from sources. They're really concerned about her, though, because she hasn't had a public sighting since. She has... And there's been rumors of, like, videos of her, but no one really confirmed it.
Wait, do you think she could have been, like...
I don't know. Ooh. They say she's safe, but, like, Simon says from sources that she's safe. But Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka, which are, like, top women's tennis players, spoke out about the situation. Many people are speaking out. But if Derek finds out that there is something deeper going on, the WTA said that if at the end of the day we don't see appropriate results from this, we will be prepared to take the step that does not operate our business in China if that's what it comes to, says Simon, the CEO. So, yeah, that's really intense. Jeez. They're really trying to figure out, like, trying to make sure he's safe, and Steve Simon especially is, like, doing everything he can to sort of, like, find out about her. They've tried to contact her in so many different ways as well, but she just hasn't responded. Which...
Oh, that's kind of scary. I hope she's doing well, because, like, you know, when someone speaks out about that, some people could, like, try to silence them, if you know what I mean. Which, silence them in mafia-type ways. Yeah, like, bad behavior. Anyway. Okay, so, the next update is about a California couple vanishing after stealing COVID-19 funds. So, the couple, Richard Avazian and his wife, Marietta Terabelian, sorry about these names today, were facing prison for their role in a huge COVID relief fraud scheme. They actually cut off their electronic tracing bracelets and fled their home, leaving their 3 teenage children. Oh. Ouch. ouch to those children. I'm sorry. But the FBI is offering a $20,000 reward for information leading to their arrest. They actually left a typewritten note for their children who were like ages 13, 15, and 16. And they said, quote, "We will be together again one day.
That's
this is
creepy.
not..." Yeah, it is. This is not a goodbye, but a brief break from each other. Okay. So the parents have still not been found by the FBI despite searching for months. Not good. But this didn't stop one judge from sentencing the wife, who's 37 years old, and the husband, who's 43 years old, in absentia to 17 and 6 years in prison. Sorry, that was really confusing. So absentia is like, if you like, say she like sentenced them, even though they weren't physically there, because obviously they're like hiding, but like she was still able to sentence them. Okay. So the husband got 17 years and I think the wife got 6 years in prison. So the parents, along with many other people, carried out this elaborate scheme where they stole $20 million in COVID relief funds that was meant for small businesses. So basically, they used fake or like stolen identities, some of them for like names of dead people who had died like years ago, and like foreign exchange students who left the US. And they like submitted fake applications to over 150 federal pandemic relief funds. And they submitted fake identity documents and fake tax forms and payroll records to lenders. Like, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And they used they literally used the money to buy like mansions in California cities and diamonds and expensive furniture. Like, seriously?
So they abandoned their children to buy...
Literally. Yeah. So when they were convicted, they have to forfeit like the houses and the luxury items and the bank accounts and around $450,000 in cash.
Are they convicted?
Yeah. Well, so here's what happened. So they were like, I think they were like charged, and then they like fled, and now they're like being sentenced, but they're not actually like
there, so they don't know where
here.
they are.
Yeah, they know.
But
they've been searching for them since the day.
Okay, but they're still able to take back their houses even if they're not.
Yeah.
There. Okay.
Yeah. I think they took back their houses when they were first charged, and then
they fled.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then they fled. So they've been fleeing for 3 months, and they still haven't found them. But now, like, as of, I don't know when it happened, but really, really, really recently, probably like a day ago, was when they sentenced them to like, they made the actual like 17 years and like 6 years. Yeah. So, yeah, so Ryan L. Corner, a special agent in the IRS's Criminal Investigation Office, said, quote, "When our nation was at its most vulnerable, these individuals thought only about lining their own pockets. These sentences reflect the seriousness of these crimes." And I, like, completely agree. Like, taking advantage of such a vulnerable situation is, like, wrong on many levels. The farewell note also made a reference to, like, threats that the parents are facing. Something about, like, how they're trying to, like, leave to avoid danger, because there are a lot of other people involved in the scheme. So, like, if those other people didn't want them to talk about how they were involved, they could silence them, you know, as we talked about in the past update. So they're obviously running because they're being charged, but they're also running, I think, to, like, keep themselves safe. So, that's bad.
Interesting.
What is wrong with people? Am I right? What is
seriously?
Wrong with
like, why does it desert your children?
Can we have good people?
It's one thing to like counterfeit and like steal money and like COVID relief funds, but it's another thing to ditch your children too.
Just, bye. We'll meet again one day.
That's really creepy.
Anyway.
So our last one is actually something that has also been on the news. Breaking news, am I right? Anyway. So Oklahoma governor grants Julius Jones clemency before execution.
Oh.
So before we start, clemency is a mechanism for like granting someone who's like charged with a criminal offense for like relief. So they're basically lessening their sentence.
Okay, so they won't get death penalty, right?
I mean, clemency, it could go for different things.
Okay.
So it could be...
But, like, in this case, would it be, like, he was going to be executed and get death penalty, but he's not going to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so, yeah, clemency is basically just a relief from a criminal offense. Okay. Whether it was a sentence or, like, a punitive measure, whatever.
That makes sense.
So, Julius Jones is a 41-year-old, and he was facing execution after nearly 2 decades on death row. So that means he was waiting his execution for 2 decades. He was convicted in a 1999 fatal shooting of Paul Hallow, which is a businessman from an affluent Oklahoma City suburb. So Howell was 45, and he would returned home from a shopping trip with his 2 daughters and sister Megan Toby when he was shot during a carjacking and in his parents' driveway. So, Toby, which was Howell's sister, testified that she distinctly remembers seeing Jones shoot her brother in front of his 2 young daughters, which is
oh, jeez.
Yeah, okay. So he was sentenced to execution at 4 p.m. this past Thursday, and he has pleaded not guilty on the charges for the 2 decades that he has been on death row. But so like he was scheduled for his execution now on 4 p.m. So the only way to stop the execution is if the Oklahoma governor wanted to stop it, which is like something in Oklahoma. They have a rule where like only the governor can stop it. So in Oklahoma, the governor has the power to accept, reject, or modify new recommendations by the pardon and parole board to grant someone like freedom from execution or death row. So there's a lot of pressure on Stitt to make this decision, which is the governor, and it was just a really hard decision for him. But ultimately, the board, which was like the parole board, recommended that he would be commuted to like life with the possibility of parole. And parole is like if you have good behavior, you can be released early.
Yeah, it's basically like you have to like follow certain like rules, but you can be released.
Yeah. So he like deferred action, saying that he would wait till the clemency hearing to like make a decision. So on November 1st, they voted in Jones' favor to like stop the execution and have the chance of parole. So Stitt granted clemency, meaning that he excused him from the execution just 5 hours before he was scheduled to be executed.
Oh, God.
Yeah, must have been super heart-wrenching. But anyway, he changed his sentence to life in prison without chance of parole. So some people are mad about this because they said that he should have gotten chance of parole, but they just didn't do it. But it's still a victory for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like still a step up from like being executed at least.
Yeah. So there was actually like a Justice for Julius petition for the Julius Jones on change.org alleging that Jones's trial attorney did not adequately defend him and that there was explicit racial bias played in the process, saying that if a white person would do it, he would be way less penalized. And it garnered more than 6 million signatures, which is a lot. But some are really mad that he didn't have parole, but most people are just super happy that he just didn't get sentenced to death. So, actually, Oklahoma has been known for having a really strict death penalty. I think it was like the 3rd highest death penalty in the country.
Oh, wow.
So, this is a good for Jones's team.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Okay, so we've had like a lot of heavy... updates this week.
Yeah, but hopefully they were interesting and hopefully you learned a lot.
And I think it's important, to like learn about these and just be aware because I think it's like...
Yeah. I heard a quote the other day that was like, children these days are like glass and we need to like expose them to the sun so they don't like break away or something. I don't know.
Oh, so like when they're... I don't know what...
I need to find it. It's on like New York Times. But it was really cool. And I just think it's important to just kind of like expose... Oh, yeah, here. She said, when we were kids, we had the freedom to learn and find out things for ourselves. Now I believe we see children as if they were made of crystal. Which
I kind of protecting them like they're a crystal. Yeah, I agree with that.
But sometimes crystals only grow under pressure.
Yes. No, isn't it diamonds?
Crystals, too.
Okay, the same thing.
Diamonds only grow under pressure.
Yes.
So, I feel like it's important to know what's happening in the world in order to do something about it.
Even though it's
so take action.
Take action, guys. Do what you can.
That's our final message for the day.
Yes.
That's our good news.
We're trying to be inspirational. Hopefully we're achieving it. I don't know if we are. But anyways, have an amazing week. Happy Thanksgiving. After you hear about this, I hope, you're grateful. Because, after, doing research on these, I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm so lucky to,
Yeah, exactly. So, and... I think it's just really important because knowledge leads to action, and that's what we're trying to do here. So, take action in some way.
And enjoy your Thanksgiving, and...
we won't be posting on Friday this week because it's Thanksgiving, and we just decided everyone just go have fun on Black Friday.
Just go have fun, plus we don't have a topic to talk about. So, follow us on our social media. It'll be linked in the bio. Check out our website. We are _youth.org.
Email us if you have any questions.
DM us. Let us know suggestions.
Follow our podcast.
Feedback. Thank you so much for listening. Have an amazing week.
And stay tuned. Bye.